Yeah, I was trying to find the things page to share this, but it's not loading and stuff, and I'm not seeing this. So if everybody that's watching wants to share, that'd be awesome. If y'all can, I can't share under my name anyways, but I can share under the page, the things, or under the Paralinks page, or like under the Spectral Sailor page. But I can't share under my own name because I'm grounded until the 6th of March. So I guess I made somebody mad because I shared something too much Wednesday night, and somebody reported me. I guess I don't know how that works because it's never happened before. So it is what it is.
Yep.
But welcome everybody, Nick Mulae. Mulae is Mulae
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
or Nick of the Corn. How
Yeah,
about
or
that?
Nick of the Corn if you want.
That's
That's
my
my
somebody
official
face.
nickname.
Yeah, Nick of the Corn. And he's. I didn't want to say expert because everybody's not an expert, but I did say you're a cryptid specialist because I would consider you a cryptid specialist. So we're going to talk about Jersey Devil and whatever else comes up that's a cryptid that you want to talk about, Nick. You just feel free to talk about whatever kind of cryptid you want to talk about. That one just sparked my interest today. So
Sure, of
how's it
course.
going?
So sorry, I actually just shared it myself.
Oh, thank you. Awesome,
Yeah, my phone was going a little bit slow while the introduction was going, so I just shared it, so we're good to go.
Irene. Hey, Paranormal. Hey, Carl. Hey, Irene. Hey, Sam. And hey, Penny. How's it going? So I know you know more about the Jersey Devil than me. I jotted down some things and I sent myself some photos. If like while you're talking about it, I can pull up screen share some photos and stuff. But what do you know about the Jersey Devil, Nick?
You know, it's interesting. The Jersey Devil is, man, it's got. I think it's probably, one of my all-time, probably my one of my top 10 most favorite cryptids because I studied that one at a young age. In fact, the first time I learned about the Jersey Devil, I also learned it alongside, no surprisingly, Mothman because I saw it on. I don't know if you guys remember that show, Weird Travels, on the Travel Channel. You guys remember that one?
Yeah, I think so.
I think I do, but if it hasn't been on recently, I'm just going to say I think I do because I don't want to lie, but I think
It
I
doesn't. Yeah,
do.
unfortunately, it doesn't air anymore because it broadcast like 15 years ago, back in 2005. But fortunately, somebody did upload it to YouTube, so you could watch it there. So thank God for YouTube. But you know, when I learned about the story of the Jersey Devil, and from what I've now learned, it's just completely blew me away. First off, the amount of sightings that have gone on in that area of New Jersey. It's been going now for over 300 years. And while some of the sightings, of course, and typical of a lot of these cryptids, while there may be some differences, in the end, a lot of these reports are the same. And there's still a lot of sightings in that area of New Jersey, especially the Pine Barrens to this day.
No.
So yeah, I'd seen like not like all the way until like 1909 was the furthest back that I saw. So that was just the furthest back that when I was looking it up and researching it that I saw. But 1909 was the first sighting that I saw all the way like like through most of the 1900s off and on, and then 1937, 1951, 1957, and I even saw 2015.
Right, right. Yeah, a lot of times, a lot of the sightings will go back to 1909, but there's even earlier sightings that occurred, and that goes all the way back to the supposed birth of the Jersey Devil itself, which was back in 1735.
Oh, geez, that's a long
Yeah.
time ago.
Although, interestingly enough, one of the stories, because there were a few reports that did occur in the 1700s, but you don't really see too much from throughout most of the 1800s because it was sometime in either the 1740s or 50s where, because word obviously spread in that area of New Jersey at that time, of what happened, of what was going on, and supposedly a Catholic priest or exorcist supposedly had exorcised this creature for over 100 years. So throughout most of the 19th century, there weren't as many reports. So getting up to the 1890s, and especially when you get up to 1909, that's when the sightings start again. So did it somehow, escape from hell, or did the exorcism ritual only lasted 100 years and it came back afterwards? It could be any possibility.
Or did some kind of crazy like earth shifting event happened and it went underground, and then like something happened and it woke it up. I was kind of like in my mind comparing it to like the Jeepers Creepers story, where it
Yeah,
like feeds so
exactly.
often and maybe it went away for a while because it had been exercised and it went somewhere kind of like a kaiju or something, or
Yeah.
and then it just came back because some like earth shifting event happened and it woke it back up, and made it come back out. Or it got hungry.
It could be anything. I mean, it's just, I think it's just probably due to the fact that, I mean, again, I don't know if it could be due to the ritual because it only lasted for 100 years, that all of a sudden it finally woke up, or it escaped, or, there the ideas of how it must have returned. There's endless possibilities. Um, but it's just amazing that even after, when it came back after 100 years, it still has yet to have ever gone back into hibernation, because since 1909 the sightings have
Hmm.
just been, they've been nuts. So it's incredible to me.
Yeah, and I've seen like different videos, photos, and like pictures and pictorials and interpretations of it that look anywhere from like almost like a dragon to like
Yes.
almost like a demon thing type thing to a goat with wings or a Pegasus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Even
mean,
maybe.
like,
that's, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
I don't know.
off.
I think Jason was talking to her, or they're going to talk.
See, that's the thing about also its appearance, is that they say the scariest thing about the Jersey Devil is its appearance. It's like, like this huge, larger than life demonic, almost dragon like creature that exists in these woods. And of course, as most people would say, if they saw one look at this thing, they would turn the other direction. But in addition to its appearance, and again, typical of some of these other cryptids out there, it frightens people, of course, especially children, and it kills livestock and wreaks havoc on social order.
Yeah, the comic book I was reading earlier that made me think about it. There were some, like in the comic book, so obviously it's fiction. There were like livestock goats and a dog was found that were eaten, and they had no blood coming out of them or anything like that. Almost like it had vampirism, like mannerisms or something. Like it had either drained the blood or somehow killed the animal without making a mess and just
Kind of
left
like
the
a
carcass there.
chupacabra.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it made me just like have all these questions, and I've been seeing a lot of dragon sightings lately in like the last since 2000, or not 2000, but 2020, 2021, and I've seen some now, 2022, of like dragon sightings. And the videos that I've seen, they don't look doctored, and they even actually, some people had gotten arrested in China for claiming that they saw dragons.
Really?
Yeah, because they were telling him to say it was a tiger, but it's very obvious the difference in the way it looks and sounds of a tiger and something that looks like a dragon. And it made me think, I wonder if it's a Jersey Devil or if it's like the Batman, like the man that's a Batman, you
Yeah.
know?
There's those like giant winged bat-like creatures, and those are seen like all over the world. And they're more described, however, as, of course, bat-like, but also even have ape-like features to them. So they're like flying apes, if you will, vampire
Yeah.
apes.
Yeah, I didn't
But
really
yeah,
see if those are spotted, but I just saw photos of them.
that's interesting. You brought up, like about these dragons that are supposedly seen, because it also makes you wonder. Because comparing to the Jersey Devil,
Hmm.
how it has that dragon-like appearance, could this be like the same species, or is it like considered relatives of the Jersey Devil? I mean, it's like, or could there just be other creatures just like that, um, just only due to the fact that we're not the only ones that have a creature like that, out in New Jersey.
Yeah, and someone was asking, like, why would like dragons be surfacing all of a sudden? I said, maybe right now Mother Nature's mad, and Mother Nature's just had it with us because of stuff that's going on right now, and it's been going on for a
Yeah,
while. And there was, like just some kind of shift in Mother Nature that woke these things up. Because I know, like in the myths and stuff, dragons are supposed to sleep in caves and stuff for long periods of time, and then I guess, whenever they're woke up, they come out. And in one of the videos, there was like a dragon, and I think I might have sent myself the video. There's a dragon that was spotted in Texas, and it actually, there was projecting fire out of its mouth, and it went all the way
Really?
from up above a building down onto the ground. Yeah, it looked almost like something
Wow.
in a Godzilla movie or something, but a dragon. But the tail was so short on it that I was like, is that really a dragon? I mean, some dragons, if you look at in mythology, some dragons have short tails, but it almost looked like, to me, the Batman.
Wow, I see, that's new for me, that because again, I'm surprised I didn't hear about that. So it's like, if there's like video or photo, I'd be like photos of it, I'd just be like, this I gotta see, because I gotta check that out for myself. That definitely.
I think it was Austin that I saw the video. It was just last week. It was
Oh, it's just
last
a
week.
week ago.
Yeah, the one in Austin, Texas, and then there was one in China not long ago, and one somewhere else that was a foreign country. But the one in China shows the full body of the dragon and is making this really loud noise. And there's all these people in a field. It looks like a shire or something, but they're all like, they look Chinese. It looks like it's in China, which would make sense, a dragon being in China, probably. But it's making this really loud noise, and the only way I can describe this noise is it's not a tiger noise, because I've heard tigers crying and tigers growling, and I've been around tigers a lot. Like I have fascination with cats and stuff, but it sounds like, to me, this is my way of describing it, as if like you read in the Bible that there's a loud horn that sounded from heaven, like a really loud horn that is so loud that you can hear it everywhere. It sounded like that to me. And that's what got everyone's attention, and they started recording, and they got this dragon on camera.
Wow, I've never heard of something like that before. So that's really fascinating. So, but just the fact that it makes a noise like that, and furthermore, like, adding the fact that it was breathing this kind of fire of some sort, that really does kind of fit the description of, the classic, medieval dragons, or, even some of the Chinese versions of dragons.
Yeah. Because when I said something about it, someone said, Chinese or medieval? And I said, I don't know. Let me go back and look, because I need to see. The wings are smaller on the medieval dragon, I think, and the tail is longer on the Chinese dragon, I think. So I think that's kind of like some things to decipher, like the two differences in them. But, I'm not like a dragon expert or anything like that, or a cryptid expert or anything like that. But when I saw the Jersey Devil today, and I thought, man, that looks a lot like what I saw in those videos.
It could be, like I said, a relative of some sort.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Appreciate it. But yeah, like, do you know any of the places that the bat man or person was sighted?
So, like, a lot of those winged. So as I've always have said it, these sightings of these large winged bat-like creatures, they've been reported in all corners of the world. I mean, like I said, the way how they're usually described as being up to 5 feet tall, with black or grayish fur, reddish brown leathery wings that can go up to about 10 to 15 feet, clawed feet, dark eyes, for some reason eerie feminine features, and monkey-like faces. And the interesting thing is actually is they all go by different names depending which parts you're focusing on. So a couple primary examples is, in Brazil they're called bat people. In Mexico, there was an ancient Mayan cult that worshipped a deity known as the death bat. In Java, they're said to be, the rainforests are said to house a bat-like creature known as the ahul, because of its vocalization that it makes. In Vietnam, they're known as night flyers. And of course, with all the respect for the U.S., and this is going to be a crazy name, there's actually a creature that's said to live right on the banks of Mount St. Helens in Washington. Like, there's caves, and they call that the bat squatch.
That's funny. Bat squatch.
So, I don't know if they're exactly the same type of creature, but they all have very similar appearances. It's really just different names to them.
Yeah, or locations. Do you want to say something, Jason?
Well, I was just going to say about the Jersey Devil. One like part of it, it was born like an old farmhouse and it had hooves and wings or something like that, and then like it just took off to the woods or whatever. Isn't that what happened? Or it was something like that.
Yeah, so the story, there's a couple different versions of how it was born, but the most notorious of them all, the one that everybody talks about, it started off with this woman by the name of Mother Leeds. And again, this goes back to, like I said, 1735. And the Leeds family that lived in that area they were considered, I guess, they were kind of considered an unusual, strange family because Mother Leeds, she had 12 children that she was raising along with her husband. So, and of course, in those days, having such a large family like that was particularly unusual because even back then, not too many families had that many kids. And at one point, she came to the realization that she was pregnant with her 13th child. And when she found out that she was pregnant, once again, she cried out in frustration. And she, at one point, made this prayer and said, Lord, if this child that I'm going to be having is not a healthy baby, let this one be a devil. Unbeknownst to her, of course, her wish was granted. And of course, 9 months later, she gave birth to this baby. And at first, things were actually normal. Like it started off as just a normal, healthy, beautiful baby boy with, blonde hair, blue eyes. But then something went terribly wrong. It began to age very quick. It went from like an infant to a child to a teen to an adult to an old man. But even after when it turned into an old man, it continued growing and turning into this horrific creature. As they say in the descriptions, its eyes, it still had its eyes all right, but they were glowing red now like two hot coals. And its head took the shape of a horse with horns growing out of it. And where the shoulder blades should have been, it took the wings of a bat. It developed these, the scaly looking body with sharp claws. Its feet turned into these hooves and it grew a long serpentine tail. It's like at that point it became like this adult creature very quickly. It let out this blood curdling scream and then it flew up the chimney. And in some versions of the story also say that after when the Jersey Devil was born, it actually ate up the rest of Mother Leeds' 12 children before flying off into the chimney and out into the pine barrens.
Wow.
It's crazy. The story that I read this morning is a lot like that one. But it said that when she was like, she did all of the same stuff about it. She found out she was pregnant and said, and I think she died during childbirth in the story that I read.
Yes.
And the dad saw the baby and just freaked out. Either she did or didn't die, but either way, she saw that the baby wasn't normal first. And the dad freaked out and ran with the baby and threw it in the river. And the rivers turned red from that day forward. And it was not explainable if it was from those specific trees that were there and the sap that came out of them was red, or if it was because the Jersey Devil was thrown in there and it made the water turn red, like blood or something like that.
I've never heard of that story, but I'm not surprised because, again, there's a few other versions of like how the Jersey Devil was born. I mean, of course, for some people on a skeptical level, some people believe that most likely it could have just been, a deformed child cursed at birth and, doomed to live out his life in the Pine Barrens. But the fact that there's this, this monster out there, I think people would think otherwise. And that's why there was, again, a huge span throughout the 1700s until its exorcism. But, it's just, you go to that area, there's not going to be one person probably who lives in that area. In fact, one of the areas where the Pine Barrens are located, it's known as the Leeds Point, which is based on the Leeds family. In addition to that, too, I also heard that from 1735 to 1909, the Jersey Devil was then known as the Leeds Devil.
Yeah. I think in that story, that place that you mentioned is what it called, the place that it was supposed to hide.
Yep.
And there was a forest area, like a big foresty area. And the people of the town would like resort hitchhikers and other people whose vehicles broke down to camping there, kind of like they were on purpose, leading them to their death so that they would keep this thing fed, I think.
Yeah, there were stories like that too. I mean, again, when you have an unknown creature, especially in that era, roaming these forest areas, you're going to have people who are going to try to go hunt it down,
Mm-hmm.
because they may obviously, people back then would fear for their safety and they don't know what they're dealing with. So they
Mm-hmm.
often would, try to hunt this creature down. But as like any type of monster hunt that you can, that they go out for, they find usually little to no evidence of it. So, and the area, like I said, which that wooded area we were talking about, the Pine Barrens, that
Mm-hmm.
was truly an area where an unknown creature like that could hide, because it actually spans for a couple hundred miles. I mean, this is,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, first off, everybody always thinks like the state of New Jersey, is very heavily populated, and indeed, in fact, it is. There's a lot. It's a lot of the population does indeed cover the state, but in one part of New Jersey and beyond, it's nothing but endless woods. I mean, you could go through 100 miles of that area and not come across any structures or anybody. So that's why it's such a perfect hiding spot, and why it's so tied to the legend of the Jersey Devil.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the river that supposedly, I mean, there's probably a river that's going to run through, or a creek or something like that that's going to run through that big of a massive
Hmm.
piece of forestry, anyways. Alicia said you will have to check out Van Meter, Iowa, if you
Van
have
Meter.
not yet. Do you know about it? They have a festival that commemorates the sightings of this winged creature that's 9 feet tall that would take to the mines, and they eventually sealed it in.
Yeah, that was they call it the Van Meter visitor. There hasn't really been any reports since the original sightings. That was back in 1903 that it occurred, and a lot of people attribute, despite it being a winged creature, most people usually point it out as a kind of more of like a flying humanoid, like of alien extraterrestrial origin. And it only occurred for a good period. It's been a while since I've heard the stories of the Van Meter visitor, but what I can remember was it only happened for a good period of time before, like, as the story goes, the mines were sealed up. So could the Van Meter visitor still be lurking, still trapped in that area? I'm not sure, but there haven't been any sightings in Van Meter, Iowa since 1903.
Hmm. That's cool.
Yeah, and they do, and as like Alicia said, yeah, they do have a festival, and that's the other thing too. I've noticed there's been a lot more, cryptid festivals for these different creatures, and I think at one point, obviously, I think for the Jersey Devil, I think they did used to have a festival, but for the last couple of years, they haven't had them.
I know there's a statue of it in New Jersey, a statue of the Jersey Devil.
I don't know if they do have one for the Jersey Devil, but they certainly do, of course, for Mothman.
Yeah.
They do?
Yeah, they do. I've actually been to the statue. In fact, Crystal and Tim have been to this Point Pleasant as well to see the statue. So,
Yeah.
but I'm surprised they haven't made one yet for the Jersey Devil.
Oh, I think they said that museum. I'm pretty sure it said that. I might be wrong. That paranormal museum that's in Asbury Park near Jersey Shore has a statue in it of the Jersey Devil.
I'm gonna have to look into that. That's that's new for me because I didn't know anything about that.
It's right above a paranormal books and curiosity shop. So I
Interesting.
guess it's like two stories. You can go in and look at the books and the curiosities, and then you can go upstairs and look at the Jersey Devil stuff.
Huh. I'm gonna have to check that out.
You said cryptids becoming more mainstream. Yes, they are, and
They are.
I
Yeah.
think like I don't know. It's probably like a lot to do with because paranormal became more mainstream in the last several years too. Like spirit hunting and spirit seeking and investigating and spirit communication, they kind of go hand in hand in a way.
I tell you what's cool is, to me, it's different. Obviously we have Bigfoot and he's around everywhere. But like the California, they're in California. The little night crawler guys are they're like two little legs or whatever.
Yeah, they're
Oh
called
No,
creep.
yeah,
Are they
yeah,
called
yeah,
creepers or something like
yeah.
mm,
that?
They're like creepers of some sort.
not
I never
mm,
really did figure out the name, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, night
Yeah,
crawlers or
yeah,
whatever.
night crawlers, yeah. And there
Yeah,
have been more sightings of them. At first, there was only one that circulated, and then there was another one of two of them at one time that circulated. And I think I've seen another sighting of them, like 3 different ones.
I want to say they were called the Fresno night crawlers at first or something like that. But yeah, it's just weird that you just look like 2 little legs, and then just
Yeah. It reminds me of those little, what are they called? The windsock thingies, and they're like blowing in the wind. They remind me of that, but like
Oh,
just part of
Kentucky.
one, but not a whole one.
Kentucky
Okay.
Goblins. I think
Uh-huh.
he's referring. I think Johnny's referring to the Hopkinsville Goblin case.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one. Hopkinsville's in Kentucky.
Yeah, it's in That's in Kentucky. That was considered one of the most notorious alien visitations, in the history of the United States. That occurred back in August of 1955. I think it was August 21st of 1955, and I can't remember the name of the family, but they said they saw this bright light that occurred. Yeah, as exactly was it's in Western Kentucky in 1955. They saw this bright light that occurred right over their farmhouse, and not long afterwards, they started seeing these small, little goblin-like creatures. That this was like probably as close as you can ever get to a true encounter with the so-called little green men.
Mm-hmm.
They would often see these creatures pop up around the property, and they, of course, being Kentucky, people in Kentucky have guns with them. They were shooting at them.
I heard
But
about that story now. I remember.
yeah, they didn't seem to harm them. Like every time they shot them, they heard this metal ringing from them, and they just disappear, and they just kept coming back.
And the law enforcement acted like the family was all drunk or messed up or something like that, because they were like, we don't see them, so we don't see them here to shoot. So we don't know what to say to you folks.
Yeah, and they came back after the police left.
Did they really?
Yeah, it was like over a span of, I think it was like 2 nights, or it was either one whole night or 2 nights where they were visited by these creatures, and even after the cops left, they came back, and it was like a battle for them.
There's a new Goblins movie that's coming out too. I don't think it's called Goblins, but it's about goblins. It looks like it's in Ireland or Scotland or New Zealand or somewhere like that.
That sounds like something that would happen out there at Skinwalker Ranch or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that also reminded me of the Jersey Devil. Like, it sounded a lot like what it does to cattle and stuff like that. Sounded a lot like the Skinwalker thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's almost. I mean, there's obviously a lot of differences compared to Skinwalkers and the Jersey Devil, but it does partially have some of that similar behavior, especially revolving around animal mutilations.
Yeah. And then Jeepers Creepers story, which, obviously fiction, but, I think everything comes from some kind of experience that someone had, or, like some kind of mythological thing or urban legend or an experience that somebody had. But the Jeepers Creepers kind of reminds me of sort of like a similar thing as either one of those.
Right.
So don't you if you can, Nick, talk about some stuff that maybe people haven't heard of, really not so much mainstream. Like I was saying, everybody's talked about the Jersey Devil, Bigfoot, and everything that we all know about.
Yeah.
Maybe some stuff we don't know really.
Sure. Yeah, so believe it or not, I mean, we got a few cryptids here in Illinois, although the sad part is most of them are down in more southern Illinois because it's more rural than what we have up here, because, here in northern Illinois, especially Chicago, it's more populated. But in addition to, because again, we too have Bigfoot reports in the central southern Illinois area. We have this is a little bit more well known, but I'll still put it out anyway. We have the so-called Thunderbird sightings, those really large birds that have been sighted. We've got the what are known as the alien big cats, or phantom panthers, ABCs is sometimes for short. But the two cryptids in particular that most people haven't heard of, we had something that's called the the Enfield Horror. And now this did occur in the early 70s, but this is not the same case as the Enfield Poltergeist, as a lot of us are familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
because that was out in the UK. This is right here in Illinois. The Enfield Horror was, again, there hasn't been any sightings recently, but this was a cryptid that occurred throughout April of 1973. The creature has always was described as oh man, it's kind of a little bit hard to describe, believe it or not. It's not like your typical cryptid out there. It's been described as almost like a one website once said it was almost like a living pile of mud, if you will. It said that it's described as being about 3 to 4 feet tall. It has these short arms with claws on the end of these talons on it. It has these very large glowing pink eyes, and it has 3 legs to its back, like 2 long ones and 1 short one in the middle of it. And it makes this hissing noise, and despite its relatively diminutive size and its appearance, it's known to jump long distances, like make these very long leaps.
I was gonna say like a kangaroo. You said a third leg.
Yeah, well, it kind of jumps like a kangaroo, if you will, but based on its appearance, it's quite
Well,
different.
yeah, it would be like a mutated, greatly like a distorted, mutated kangaroo. If that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's not very many sightings of it, but the first sighting of that creature, like I said, it occurred on April 25th of 1973. There was a resident by the name of Henry McDaniel. Him and his wife had recently returned to their home in the town of Enfield. And in case anyone wants to know where Enfield is, it's literally right on the foot of Illinois, so way down south from where we are. Johnny, it is called the Enfield Horror. So I think there might even be a Wikipedia page on it now. So, but yeah, the story goes that he and his wife had returned home in Enfield, and they found their 2 children who were by themselves, absolutely terrified. And they were
Mhm.
saying, what was the problem? They said that there was some creature that was trying to get into their home. Excuse me. And of course, he was skeptical at first until he started hearing all this scratching going on right at the front door. So, thinking it was just, like a raccoon or a coyote or something, he opened the door, and literally standing right in front of him on the porch, he saw this creature just standing and just staring at him with these large glowing pink eyes. There are some stories. There's another version where he actually did go outside to investigate, and he's found this creature near a rose bush, I guess. So, of course, like any person in that area would do, he grabbed a shotgun and he
I
fired
was just
right at
gonna
the
say, did
creature.
he shoot that thing with a shotgun?
Yep,
That's what I would
yep,
do.
exactly. That's Southern Illinois for you. Grew up right across. Oh wow, how about that, Johnny?
He's cool.
But he said that once he fired at it, it didn't seem like the bullets had any type of effect on this creature. It hissed at him, and then it literally made like 3 leaps across the fields before it disappeared into the night. Um, he, of course, called the police. They weren't able to find too much evidence other than they found several scratches from one side of the house, but the only other, but probably the most bizarre type of evidence that they found of this creature was these tracks that they found. The tracks were described looking like that of a dog's, paw prints, but
Mhm.
instead of having 4 toes, it actually had 6 toes that were curved around the main paw area.
This is exactly what I was thinking about. What Adam said, it made me think about Spring Heel Jack, who was bouncing back and forth
Yeah,
from rooftop to rooftop, and they couldn't like catch him.
right. I mean,
Hmm.
it's partially, it does remind me of Spring Heel Jack, but when you look at the again, the descriptions between Spring Heel Jack and the Enfield Horror, they're quite different creatures.
Yeah, the description's different because I remember when I was a little kid, my cousins, I would stay in the summer with them. They were twins. Their names were Justin and Jason. I'd stay with them a lot, and they had these magazines called Fate magazine, and it looked like
Yeah,
National.
Fate magazine.
You know what I'm
Yep.
talking about? It looked like National Geographic in size, kind of, or like a TV guide, but it was fake magazine. And man, I would just sit there and I would just lose myself in those things. And I read about Spring Hill Jack in one of those.
Yeah, Spring Heel Jack is another one. I mean, not not necessarily a cryptid of its own, but sometimes it's always been kind of placed in that category because that too was only seen throughout a good period before it just disappeared altogether.
Yeah, and if you classify someone that acts, even if they look kind of human, if they act not like a normal human, then I guess, you could really just say they could be a cryptid. Who knows?
Right, right.
Well, that you talk about these time periods between these things were seen at certain times, and it may be only for a certain couple of days or whatever it was, but that kind of brings up those cryptids being like interdimensional or or something's opened and let them out or something, or it's weird because like why wouldn't they been seen before that or after, like sometimes, and then more consistent, and it's like where do they go?
Exactly. And ironically enough, in this case, like the Enfield Horror, the only other time that something like that had been, something similar like that occurred, it should be noted that before the sightings in 1973, that between the years 1941 and 1942 in the town of Mount Vernon, which is actually just just 40 miles from Enfield, they had a similar amount of sightings just like that. They didn't really give a lot of details for some reason, but they described it very similar to the Enfield Horror, but they described it kind of looking more, I guess, a little bit more ape-like, if you will, but it still had that ability to leap, and it only lasted for, a small period before it disappeared altogether. And then, well over almost 40 years late, 40 years later, it somewhat happened again in the town of Enfield. And for some strange reason, 50 years later, there hasn't been any, reports like that. Though, of course, again, that doesn't mean it's still out there in the wooded areas.
Right. There's those theories, like I was saying about the different dimensions, but it also like kind of brings up too, like, the inner Earth theory in a way, because like where do these big thunderbirds go, or where they come from, or how come they're just not? I mean, you would notice them, you would think, but um, it's like where do they go back to? It's just that's just the thing. It's like they found cracks somewhere and they were able to get out, and then hey, I'm out here roaming around terrorizing this people or whatever, but or like I said, thunderbirds being seen across the sky. It's like they just get a like a blip, in our dimension and then right back out or something, or
Right.
into the hollow earth or wherever they're at.
Well, it should be noted because again, the majority of these cryptids we have in Illinois are often usually in the southern Illinois area. Believe it or not, and a lot of people don't know this unless you live in Illinois. It's that the crescent of Illinois, so right of southern Illinois, it's been long referred to as Little Egypt. The reason for that is because anyone who reads the Bible attentively knows very well that Egypt does not get good press. It's a region of darkness and superstition. A lot of weird things happen, and that's exactly what happens down in southern Illinois. So, in addition to the cryptids, you also have the UFO sightings. You got plenty of haunted locations throughout the area, and in fact, some of the areas in that particular area where Enfield is located, because it's again it's very rural, a lot of farmland and forest areas. There in the early days, a lot of people tended to avoid that area because they believe it was cursed. That area also became known as the Devil's Kitchen.
Where was that? The Devil's Kitchen?
It's in southern Illinois, so
Okay. I've
it's
heard
not
of it
just
before.
it's not just particularly Enfield, but it's a lot of the
Yeah.
surrounding areas. But it's a very very sparsely populated area. So that's how it partially got its reputation for, the nicknames of Little Egypt, the Devil's Kitchen, because of all the strange reports that go through that area.
Yeah, I've heard of the Devil's Kitchen before. Um, I don't know, probably on one of those paranormal shows or on something like on Discovery where they're like talking about, different theories and stuff like that about areas
Right.
of the globe. So she
Mhm.
said, I'm going to see how far Enfield is from me. Alicia said she's from Illinois also.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. That's awesome. So all of it's a single.
Single.
That is true. That is true. I will have to agree with Johnny on that. Um,
So funny.
but yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating story. I mean, it's not as it doesn't gain as much recognition as some of the other cryptids do. And again, sadly, there's really not that much evidence. In fact, the last reported sighting of the Enfield Horror, so in case Alicia wants to know, was again the same year. It was in May of '73. There was I can't remember who the guy's name was, but he was a radio show host for a radio station out in oh man, it's like right at the tip of my tongue. I can't remember that. It was somewhere in Indiana, but after hearing the reports from what was occurring in Enfield, he and along with three other reporters decided to go down and try and search for this creature. While they were in the woods, and of course this was obviously at night, they did get a brief encounter of the Enfield Horror, but it was going by so fast that they barely had a chance to really actually see it. But they did manage to get one thing out of this creature, and that was they had a recorder running, and they were able to record the eerie screams of this creature. Uh, as fascinating as it sounds, unfortunately, however, that recording is not available. I've been looking all over the place for it, and I have yet to have found the recording, but I know it still exists somewhere. They just haven't released it. But that was the last report of it.
Oh wow.
Have you heard it?
No, I haven't heard the recording. I've really been
Hmm.
wanting to, but as of right now, that recording is not available. So, but I've still, there's not a year that goes by where I check to see if, maybe someone on YouTube or, somebody on a website may have managed to get a copy of the recording and put it up. But I've yet to have found it. But that's something I've been, desperately been wanting to hear just to see exactly what it really does sound like, even if it only it's just for a few seconds. That would just, certainly fill my satisfaction.
If I was
Right.
going to like look it up and deep dig, is it the Enfield
The Enfield
horror that you're
Horror.
talking about? The noise that they
Yes.
recorded? Okay. I might do some deep digging. I mean, I don't know if I'll find anything or not. If you haven't, I probably won't either, but it's not going to keep me from digging.
Exactly. I
I'm
mean,
still going to do it.
I think entirely out of the entire story of the reports, there was only really about just maybe 5 reported sightings of this creature, because the second sighting that occurred, to make a long story short, was from a 10-year-old, because he supposedly saw this creature before Henry McDaniel did that same night on April 25th. He said he was out catching fireflies, and this creature somehow either leaped to him or what, but it stomped right on his shoes, and it was, despite being a small creature, it had such force that it torn his shoes to shreds.
Oh, wow.
And as he ran off, to the house terrified. And then the third sighting, ironically enough, was Henry McDaniel himself. Once again, he actually had a second report encounter of this creature a few nights later. But this time it wasn't as intense. He saw it because he lived right near a railroad line, a train station, and he said he could see it from his window. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. He saw it, and it was just just going down the railroad line before it just once again leaped into the air,
Right.
into the night. And then finally, the final report was, because especially in an era like that, when you have this creature being seen, it's going to have people from all over try to hunt for it. And there were 4 hunters that were arrested by the sheriff because they thought they were raising hell with their shotguns, but they claimed that they did see this gray thing. The only difference that they said about this time when they saw this creature compared to the other reports was that it seemed hairy this time in appearance.
Hmm.
So, and even the sheriff, because he was getting, he was already getting fed up with these reports, and it was coming from Henry McDaniel, that he even threatened to put him in jail if he didn't stop spreading the story. But
Yeah.
how can you not?
They're like, you're
Right.
going to cause a mass manhunt or mass
Yeah.
hysteria.
Yes.
As Brent Long said, I wish we had something cool in Arkansas, which me and Jason are actually right on the Arkansas border, and I'm absolutely sure there is something
Yep,
cool there.
you guys do. You
We
guys
just need
do,
to find
actually.
it.
You
and we
guys
just need
have
to get it
you
on
guys ever?
film.
I'm
The,
surprised you guys haven't heard of the Falk Monster.
I was just fixing to say that, but yeah,
Yep.
it's a yeah. I mean, that's down in Falk, Arkansas, and they actually made a movie about it.
Yep, The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Yeah, and that was what
Yeah.
when they made that movie, like in the 70s or something. I don't know, but
Again, same year too at the Enfield Sightings, 1972. So this year is actually going to be the 50th anniversary of that film.
yeah, I met a guy that wrote a book about it one time. I forget his name, but
I think I have the book, and he signed it. I was telling you that one time that when I went to St. John's, that there was a man there that wrote a paranormal book about spirits and cryptids and stuff from Arkansas, and he signed it, but I don't remember his name either. So
No.
Yeah, I think was it Lyle Blackburn? I think that might be who that was because
that sounds really familiar.
he
You say
does
he
a
wears
lot of
the-
those.
he
He's
wears
covered a
the
lot of the
hat.
Falk Monster sightings.
The guy I'm picturing, he wears a hat, kind of has a
Yeah,
he had
that's
a
him, Lyle Blackburn.
yeah, he had a ponytail or whatever at the time. Yeah,
Yes,
I don't
that's
know.
what he looked like when he
Yeah.
signed the book. Kind of like a
That's
grizzly, a grizzly mountain person or something, sort of. But like he dressed nice because he was at a church, kind of like casual.
Yeah, I met him and talked with him and stuff about that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, if you don't, it's not. It's kind of crazy because it's not like it's well publicized like anymore, like it used to be.
Mm-mm.
Like I said, the movie
Right.
just kind of faded off in the time, But
I don't know what it is, but it seems like the 60s and 70s on many occasions seems to be like a really huge time for like a lot of these cryptids out there, including, like I said, the Enfield Horror and the Falk Monster. So it just seemed like there was a lot more mainstream attention compared to like what it is now today.
right. Yeah, and now you got the ones that's taken over. You get Bigfoot is probably the biggest.
Exactly.
What is that?
I'm muted. That's a dog. This is not a cryptid. This is a dog. It's
It's
an
like, what's
underwear
going-
eating dog though, because I got this dog because it was trying to eat underwear. So
Okay. I was like, okay, you just want to make an appearance.
Yeah, and it's to also add to what you were saying, Jason, is that even for a creature like the Falk Monster, like you said with Bigfoot, being like the one that gets a lot of the attention, despite the fact that the Falk Monster is also a Bigfoot type creature itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It wasn't. The thing about that one was that he wasn't he wasn't huge. Like he wasn't like 9 feet tall or anything.
Oh, I heard it was actually quite big, but there were some differences compared to of the Falk Monster compared to the Pacific Northwest Bigfoot. I mean, from what I've heard is they say it seems to be some type of swamp monster or a skunk ape type creature, standing anywhere from 5 feet to 8 feet tall. That is human looking, but covered with long dark black reddish or long dark reddish or black or brown hair. Its chest is said to be like 3 feet wide. It has these very long arms that end with claws, and they say when it walks, it walks kind of like with a galloping gait or of some sort, and when it runs, it swings its arms similar to that of a monkey's. They also said that it had a terrible odor that's been described between a cross between a wet dog and a skunk. Few have even reported saying it had glowing red eyes the size of silver dollars. But the most perhaps unusual feature of this creature, and I don't know if you guys knew this, was the tracks that it makes, which are said to have been which have been measured to be 17 inches long and 7 inches wide. They're human looking, but apparently they show that the creature has only 3 toes on each foot.
Wow.
Yeah, like a chicken or a pterodactyl foot, kind of.
Well, there's a few tracks, like track photos. There's not very many because again, this was the early 70s. But there's been a few kind of castings of it, not actual castings, but based on it. But they do appear looking like a human foot, but they have only 3 toes on them, which is unusual because, as far as we know, all known apes, primates, hominids, and of course humans have or have had 5 toes. So there's really no explanation truly why the Falk monster, an ape-like creature, has only 3 toes, and there's no known type of creatures ever in the evolution where it's only have ever had 3 toes. So it could be different reasons. It could be because it could be some type of other Bigfoot that we don't know of. Of course, some say it could be interdimensional, it could be alien. But if you look at kind of a more earthly factor, for lack of a better term, it also could be even maybe some type of inbreeding, where usually
I was going to say it could be Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's Arkansas because you said inbreeding. I think that has happened here a time or two.
Right. Yeah, there's different reasons why it can only have 3 toes, but the only other difference, one other difference about the Falk monster is there was also reports of people who said they were out in the swamp areas who were either, hiking, jogging, hunting, or camping, and they would see or hear the creature. And it usually was in an aggressive situation, and it became a major vocal point for a lot of the studies, which, unlike Bigfoot, it would attack any particular area where it was inhabited by humans. So out of all the Bigfoot skunk ape type creatures out there, in my opinion, the Falk monster is probably what I would consider the most dangerous.
Because it wasn't intimidated by humans or trying to hide to not be seen.
No, I mean, it's like this creature seems to be kind of more about territory, about violence, about aggression, and not so much of the primate tendencies that we see from some other areas.
Yeah, like a bear or a moose kind of.
Exactly, yeah.
They're very confrontational.
It's really one of the few cryptids out there where it's not afraid to, cross paths with humans. And in particular, again, I just thought of this too. Another difference compared to, Bigfoot, the Pacific Northwest, is most modern day primates, as well as even Bigfoot itself, usually are diurnal. They're usually around during the day. The Falk monster in this case was partially nocturnal. So it was often usually encountered at night, but there have been a few daylight encounters as well.
That's interesting. Makes you wonder if it's nocturnal. Like, is it part cat or part bat?
It obviously, it obviously seems to show a lot more aggression, especially at night. I mean, in fact, and this actually has something to do with the film, by the way, of The Legend of Boggy Creek. Although sightings of the Falk monster, I mean, they go as far back as 1908, although there were 2 reports that occurred back in the 1850s. But the most notorious sighting of the Falk monster occurred in May of 1971. And it involved when it attacked the home of 25-year-old Bobby Ford and his wife, 22-year-old Elizabeth Ford. The Ford family claimed that this creature actually came up to their house, walked up to their house right on the porch. Elizabeth Ford had, fallen asleep on the couch. Of course, she was right next to a window, and she heard this noise, and she woke up and she saw this huge creature standing right outside the window with its arm actually reaching out into the house like it was grabbing something because the window was open. She said exactly the same way. It was like 7-8 feet tall with reddish brown hair. It had these huge glowing red eyes. It didn't make any noise, but she could hear it breathing heavily. Of course, she was absolutely terrified. And then around the same time, her husband, Bobby, and his brother had recently returned back from hunting. They saw the creature, trying to reach in. Of course, they had their guns with it, and they managed to chase and scare the creature off. However, even though Bobby stayed outside to make sure it didn't come back, the creature supposedly returned an hour later. It snuck up from behind him, grabbed him from behind, and actually threw him to the ground. Fortunately, he was able to escape. He ended up suffering scratches as well as suffering from shock. The creature eventually left, and just like, with Enfield, police were called. They found scratches on parts of the porch. They found the tracks, which were, again, the weird thing was they were human-like, but 3-toed tracks. And the Ford family, they ended up moving shortly afterwards, and they had only lived in that house for, I think it was only for about a week that they actually moved. Literally a week after they moved in, they moved out because they were terrified.
Did they smell a stinky odor in any of the stories when they came?
I don't think they did because Elizabeth was in the house when it occurred. I don't think there was as much of a smell to it, despite that, other people indeed did report its smell. But I think it was also probably because everything happened so fast that they didn't
Yeah.
really get to have it really acknowledge, its disgusting odor to it.
Yeah, that's crazy because he left, probably sitting out in the woods getting all mad and everything. Comes back, I'm gonna go back, and he goes
Yeah.
back to the same place, throws that guy to the ground.
He's like, I
He's
smell
like,
pot pie. I'm gonna go back and get some chicken pot pie.
and there's really, to this day, I mean, yes, it was over 50 years ago. I don't know if the Ford couple are still alive today, because they've not been heard of since that time. But if they're still alive today, I would probably just say there's really no explanation or reason why this creature actually came up to the porch. They didn't have any food or anything, but like I said, it was probably just due to the fact because it was near the swamp and Boggy Creek area, that probably to this creature, despite there was a house already built, these guys were invading its territory. So it could have most likely just been some kind of territorial attack.
Yeah.
It's interesting, kind of like what you're saying earlier, is all these things happening, then they're all happening like, you're talking about the 60s and the 70s, and and then they just kind of go away, but it's weird why it is like that. It's like, yeah, you're getting sightings of things nowadays too, but these legends were built around the same time, for those different
Well,
creatures.
now
So.
they're like different things. Like, I'm not saying there's not any cryptid sightings recently, but more like aliens and dragons.
Exactly.
Do aliens ride the dragons? Or they're really like they're, like Battle Cat or something, like, He-Man, Battle Cat. What are the aliens and the dragons here for right now? What are they doing?
Right. Do you guys mind if I actually share the screen for a second? Because I do have a
go
picture
ahead.
of the tracks, supposedly, of the Falk monster, so you
Yeah.
guys can get an idea of what it looks like. So just give me 1 second here. Okay, so can you guys see that?
Let me allow it real quick. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so this is a replica. This is actually a replica of one of the tracks. So this is not like one of the original tracks, but you get the idea of what supposedly the original tracks looked like.
Yeah, it looks almost like, I wonder if it got part of its foot cut off, because you would think something that big, it's going to need to have a bigger like the front of the foot needs to be bigger to stabilize its weight.
Exactly, and especially due to the fact that this creature weighs, 250, 300 pounds.
Yeah.
For a creature of that weight, it would be definitely creating some really big, huge footprints in particular.
And wobbling, because it would be hard to stabilize that big of a mass of body on those little bitty feet with 3 toes. Right.
I'm going to show one more picture, which is just below. Now, this is I think one of the actual cast prints, and right next to it is probably the only photo I was able to find of one of the actual tracks that was photographed. This was photographed on the left here, was photographed in a soybean field that occurred in, I think that was in June of 1971. So so it was out in a soybean field. It was, I can't remember who the farm owner's name was, but they were able to, I find it impressive that they were even able to at least take one photograph, because several years beforehand, I never found anything like this before. So I always had trouble of wondering what a 3-toed track would have looked like, especially from that period.
I had a comment and a question. Like, Brent asked, "Is the house still standing? Have y'all heard?"
That I'm not sure of. There is a photograph of what the house, looked like back in the early 70s, but I do not know. I do not know what the status is of the house, unfortunately.
And then Greg said it's from water deteriorating the track before the cast was taken. That makes a lot of sense too.
It might.
There could have been another toe there, or another 10 toes there.
Yeah. Well, you saw there was one photo, like I said, you saw that one photo in the soybean field where it did display the 3-toed tracks even before a cast was ever even made.
That's true.
So, of course, you do have your hoaxers, of course. I mean, people who think it's a hoax and whatnot, and they could very well be, but how can you explain if you keep seeing these tracks all over the place? I mean, there's no way you can make tracks like that, with only 3 toes and that quick to get that kind of attention. I mean, you would have to have a whole team doing that.
Yeah. The like ambush attack or whatever you want to, like the whole incident.
Right.
I can see it a lot more like back in the 70s and stuff, those things kind of happening, where it's more, people were trying to hoax things rather than now, people trying to hoax things also, but also now you get shot because, people, especially right here in Oklahoma, we have a Bigfoot hunting thing, now, so that, the state, pays you so much, whatever, if you bring one in,
Yeah, but you have to get certified, don't you? Isn't it like a hunter's license, but it's a Bigfoot hunting license?
Yeah, I think you have to get issued a license just like anything else here. But yeah, I mean, like you got some guy prancing in the woods somewhere, it's pretty dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Somebody trying to get 25 grand and shoot you.
Yeah, that's definitely a very dangerous.
So if you're going out in the woods, get a haircut and wax your body first. Wear some cologne or some imposter's body spray so you don't smell like a skunk or anything.
Or at least I would suggest maybe at least bring some Jack Link's beef jerky with too.
That's funny. I don't know. They might think you're Squatch.
I actually did find a video, and you guys can find this on YouTube. There's another, of course, Bigfoot-like creature out there that's out in Ohio, the Ohio Grassman. There was a guy who was looking for evidence of the Ohio Grassman, and I don't know what it is. He's really found some incredible evidence, but on one of the videos they shot on one of those investigations, he was going through this. I think it was like a small cave of some sort that he found. Like it was on like a cliffside. Mm-hmm. And as he's climbing up, and this makes me laugh every single time. He's like, "Oh my gosh!" He looks down and he actually finds a bag of Jack Link's. He's like, "Those commercials are right."
That's so awesome.
I might just walk up and take it first before I shot the Sasquatch.
When I saw that, I literally had to write on this video. I'm like, Jack Link's beef jerky presents messing with Sasquatch, but the real thing.
I was gonna pull up the Jersey Devil video I think it was posted in 2015.
Yes, it was 2015. It came out.
Yeah, I was gonna pull
let me ask you one more question about the Bigfoot stuff, real quick.
Sure.
Go ahead.
What do you think happens to them when they die? Like, what they bury them? You think?
Yeah, I've heard about that. It's a really it's an interesting idea of what happens to a lot of these creatures. I mean, of Bigfoot, obviously, because we never find any type of, aside from maybe like hair samples. Excuse me. We never truly find any type of bones very often. So I think in some way, shape, or form, they probably do bury them. Just so that way they can't be, I guess probably perhaps even in the Bigfoot community that they probably have some kind of, respect for those that have died. So they try to hide them as best as they could.
Right.
Or what if they eat them? Because even humans resort to cannibalism out in nature as like a survivalist, like when they're at their worst, I guess, and they're just that hungry. If even humans resort to cannibalism, I'm not saying that that's what they do, but that would get rid of the evidence.
That could be a possibility. I never thought of, cannibalism. I mean, that could be a possibility, but even if there was cannibalism involved, you would still have a lot of the, bones still being found.
Yeah.
That's probably true. I don't think that they could do anything with those unless they had a way to dispose of them somewhere. Here's the video. I think I need to start it over.
I definitely remember this video.
It looks like a goat to me. I think it's like a.
Yeah, Greg also makes a good point too. Even if it's not eaten by Bigfoot, they could be eaten by other types of animal activity.
Yeah.
I mean, that really does actually look like it's a real photo of something.
Yeah, when I first saw the photograph of that, I mean, at first, to me, I thought I was a little skeptical because it did look like it was like a, like a Photoshop look to it. But now actually looking at it, years later, I think, that could be,
Because
the
the
real thing.
background is the same amount of blurry as
Yeah.
the object itself or the entity itself. Like they're both
Yep.
the
There's the
same amount
video.
of
Yep.
blurry. Like so, like if they're both the same amount of blurry, it seems like if it was an overexposed moving object, it would be blurry, and the background wouldn't be as blurry. Does that make sense? Like it depends on what kind of camera you use, also.
Right.
Yeah.
See, it's surprising how I look at a video like that, from 2015, and you look at all the sightings, like I said, over the centuries throughout New Jersey, because you guys probably have read this already, but in 1909, one of the biggest events in Jersey Devil history was something called Phenomenal Week. And that was like an entire week where there was just nonstop sightings of the Jersey Devil. I mean, basically, the Jersey Devil was just being seen all over throughout New Jersey, New York, Maryland, and I think Virginia. I don't know. I think it was one of the other states, but it was just constant, of all these, and this wasn't just people just walking by. These were people in trolleys, in trains. They were in groups, and it caused such a huge, panic. Obviously, schools were closed down early, businesses were shut down. Parents would not allow their children to go out after dark. They had like a full curfew. The entire area was just like under a state of emergency situation.
Greg Balkin said, "Hey, I have a stash somewhere of jack links that I have from working there, and I'll give them to
God.
you." No,
Greg, that is awesome.
I said he used to work there, but he didn't say what I said.
Yes. Exactly, Alicia. Yes.
Oh yeah, you don't want to get slayed trying to find a creature. Hey, Maddie.
What's up, man?
Yeah.
I did leave this on there for a minute because I'm totally with you, Stephen, on that.
Yes.
I'm like, man, just let us go over there now. Just take volunteers.
I don't know if you guys can see, obviously, I changed the colors of my lights here in the basement to those colors to support Ukraine.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
To give that respect, definitely.
I think everybody's on the same page with that,
Yep.
Normally, I mean, I usually change the lights normally for holidays, but for something like what's happening right now in Ukraine, I'm willing to make an exception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I told Howard the other day that I said, if I got T-shirts that said "F you Russian warship," I wonder if everyone on Things Network could wear them, or everyone on Paranormal Network would wear them on the shows, just to show support for Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens, and we'll see if that progresses any further than just Ukraine. Because if that happens, then that's a whole nother thing. So.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But
yeah, I don't usually talk about politics, but when you're like killing innocent people, that's not politics. That is not. That's just cruelty.
No, it's not.
That is barbarianism, or if that's even a word. That's being a barbarian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially like just ruthlessly, just like blasting them.
Yep.
And taking over resources like Chernobyl and satellites and stuff.
It's not paranormal related or anything, but the guy that's taken out like 13 of their fighter jets, he's called the Ghost.
Yeah, I thought about getting shirts with that too. He's the ghost, the Kiev Ghost. And I was like, I could get this really cool image that I found that said the Kiev Ghost. And I was like, I could get T-shirts with that on there too and give them to everybody to wear on their shows.
I mean, I just said that nowadays to do that. I mean, that's pretty badass. I mean, it is.
That's like Star Wars scale.
Yeah, he got shot down. But
really,
like he ejected over, Ukraine, and he's like they got him. He's safe, but his plane got shot down, but he shot down like 13 or 14 of their jets. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's
interesting. I see. Yeah. I didn't hear anything about that, so that's new to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane to me.
Of Kiev. Yeah, I think the T-shirt of a Ghost of Kiev, like I want one for me to wear on on these shows that I do, and then if anyone else wanted one, I was like, I'd make one and probably not even charge them. I'd probably just give it to them because that's what. But it'd be cool if you could sell them and you could send the money to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Right. And believe it or not, I actually do have, and most people don't really know this because, well, first off, you guys know of all my international connections I have. Believe it or not, I do have a few Ukrainian connections out in Ukraine. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these are out of all the countries in Europe. Obviously, Ukraine it has the least amount. I mean, I wish there was more, despite that a lot of their cities are historic and probably very haunted. But there's just not many of them. But I was able to find them. So over the next couple of days, I'm gonna, even if I've never spoken to them before, I'm still gonna
Mm-hmm.
reach out to them just to see if they're okay. Obviously,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So going back to that now,
yes,
the Gordon Lights, the Garden Lights.
Gordon Lights.
The only thing I know is called the Spook Light up like by
I
Joplin,
heard what he's
Missouri.
talking about because he asked if it
Yeah,
was swamp gas, and I've heard of a spook light or some kind of light. It must be the one he's talking
there's a
about. That
couple of them.
it was thought to be swamp gas, possibly, but I don't.
Right. Yeah.
Like I can't say myself, but I've seen this side of the fence from it being explained as swamp gas, and this side of the fence of it being explained as something supernatural, paranormal.
Right. And
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
to one. I've been to the one outside of Joplin like 4 or 5 times and seen it. It's pretty cool.
And Steven said, "Did you know that he had his training in Houston, Texas?"
Oh yeah.
I think I might have heard that, but I don't remember. But that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, but to answer part of your question too, I mean, involving these spook lights, I mean, there's a couple of them I know of, and it's not only just something that exists here in the United States. I mean, there's spook lights that like that all over the world, but the
Yeah.
closest one we got, like at least for our area, is, well, not in Illinois, but up in Michigan, the Paulding Light.
Paulding.
The Paulding Light. I think that's, it's either PAL or PAULDING. And that's been that is another one of those kind of spook lights that's been seen, in a desolate wooded area of Michigan. I think it is actually in a town called Paulding, which I believe is somewhere in central Michigan. If I'm correct, again, it's been a while, but I believe it's somewhere in Michigan. And that's been seen, for ages, even before there were cars. I mean, there have been some spook lights that finally have been debunked because, if they started, 50, 60, 70, or even 100 years ago, we would have still had car. Now that the 1920s are starting to become 100 years old, we
Right.
obviously had cars at that time. But if you're talking about a light that was seen, prior to the first automobiles, being invented, then that's definitely something. That's definitely something that's unexplained. So the
Right.
Paulding Light is one of those. So that's been seen before even cars were even invented.
Yeah. The spook lights are pretty interesting.
They definitely are. I've never seen any of them, but I've definitely seen the videos and photos.
What's the closest anyone got to the garden light? Anybody
But
know?
like what the spook light that I know of, like I said, outside Joplin, Missouri, is um uh it's far away usually, but it's also been reported to go all the way down to like to your car, like and you can find all kinds of stuff and stories about it on YouTube. But just Google or the spook light and it pops up. And
There's
um,
actually been a lot of things like that surfacing that I've seen, and they may be not new videos, but I think that they're pretty new of things that are similar to that. And China or Japan, there was a video that came out not long ago with a flood, and there were things that looked like that, but they weren't lights because it was broad daylight. And
Right.
they looked like a ghost. They're a spirit that formed, and it was white, and it did like this, and then it got bigger, and then it just kind of zipped off, and there were multiples of them on video. And these people, I don't know if they're speaking Japanese or Chinese, but they were just like, you could hear the fear in their voice, and they're like, you know, if I could imagine what they were saying in our language, it would be like, "Oh my God, what the hell is that?" You know, look
Yeah.
at that! Holy crap! What is it? You know, it sounded like that's what they were saying.
Yeah, and I got to say, I looked up the Gordon Light because again, I'm surprised I've never heard of it. But from what it says here is that um, I guess it appears near local railroad tracks in a wooded area of Gordon, Arkansas. The tracks are no longer in use, and the rails are at least partially removed or covered. But it remains one of the most popular Halloween attractions in the area. The light has been ascribed various colors, ranging from blue, green, or white to orange, and has been described as bobbing around. Its
Yeah.
exact location is said to vary, and witnesses have described it appearing at various times of day or nights.
Yeah. When I saw it, it was kind of white and then went to orange.
Yeah, that's like what it says here on the Wicca page. And then I think, who was that? Yeah, what did the Paulding Lights look like? I also opened a page on that. So the Paulding Light, also called the Lights of Paulding, or the Dog Meadow Light. Um, it's a light that appears in a valley outside Paulding, Michigan, which I looked up. That's actually where in the Upper Peninsula area, like in my opinion, the part that should still be Wisconsin, but they cut that off to be Michigan. Um, so it's in that area, and it says reports of the light have appeared since the 1960s, yeah, it says here the first recorded sighting of the Paulding Light was in 1966 when a group of teenagers reported the light to a local sheriff. Since then, a number of other individuals have reported seeing the light, which is said to appear nearly every night at the sites. And very much like what who was it that asked about?
The Marfa lights, Adam.
Yeah, the Marfalites. It was, they say here, the folklore for the Paulding Light was, although stories related to the light vary, the most popular legend involves the death of a railroad brakeman. The legend states that the valley once contained railroad tracks, and the light is the lantern of the brakeman who was killed while attempting to stop an oncoming train from colliding with railway cars stopped on the tracks. And then finally, another story claims the light is the ghost of a slain mail courier, while another says that it is the ghost of an Indian dancing on the power lines that run through the valley.
Yeah,
Um,
buddy.
yeah, according to John Carlyle, the Detroit Free Press, one legend is that it is a grandparent looking for a lost grandchild with a lantern that needs constant relighting. The
Aw.
reason the light may seem to come and go.
That's cool. That's a cool story.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's cool all the different theories about, people have about what it is and how it changes colors and everything.
makes
But
you wonder what the colors like. Each time it changes colors, like if it has like a meaning to them. I mean,
yeah,
much like our typical orbs that we have with
right.
haunted locations. I mean,
Yeah.
it always appears a different color. I mean, what it could mean, obviously, I think most of us are not sure, but it could be representing its aura or whatever it could be.
Yeah, or if it's an all natural, if it is a gas or an all natural thing, that would explain also the coloring change, the color changing. I'm not saying it is. I've never been there, but if it is some kind of gas, that can make it change colors also.
The
Right,
the
right.
the spook light, the garden light, they say no matter how try you get close to it, you can't never get close to it.
Yeah,
Like
because it
it always,
moves.
yeah, it always maintains the same distance.
Hmm.
So
Which
it's
that would kind of like seem like a reaction toward your action, so it would seem kind of not like gas.
right,
Exactly, exactly.
right, yeah, and then it also just it moves intelligently as far as the reports of it coming all the way down from the hill, like where you can initially see it, all the way up to your car, and then disappearing. People
It makes me
reported
think of like Tinkerbell.
kind of.
Yeah. I actually did know someone who, I mean, in this case with the Paulding Light, I did know someone who did, even though I've never seen it myself, I did know someone who has seen it. And he said he actually tried chasing this light. And he even got supposedly a real up close and personal encounter of this light.
Oh, wow.
He told me that supposedly only for a few, it seemed like it was a long time, but I think the encounter only lasted for just like a few seconds. He claimed he got really close to this light and but close enough that he could actually see what he said probably looked like a Native American figure
Yeah,
standing in the lights. I mean,
that's awesome.
if my reports are correct, he is probably the closest that anyone has ever gotten close to not only the Paulding Light, but any of these spook lights.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
this was, unfortunately, of course, some people are going to say, how come he didn't take a photo with his phone or anything?
Right.
This was several years ago before, we all had iPhones and Androids. So he wasn't able to get a photograph, unfortunately, of it.
Right.
It almost sounds like it was a beacon, or it was some kind of like nightlight or lighthouse thing, and then the spirit showed itself so that he could have his own personal experience with it.
Right. Because I think on most occasions, like anyone else, that has probably tried to do the same thing, and often will usually disappear or bob off into the woods. So he was probably one of the very few, if not the only, to have been lucky enough to actually get up close to that light.
Oh, that's
Look
pretty
that
cool.
up.
Showed it behind them. Yeah.
Yeah.
They say that that light in particular, like it just doesn't stay in one spot. You can, what you do is you drive up on this dirt road. It's called Spook Light Road, actually, and then
Okay.
you just kind of hang there. Right when it starts getting dark, turn your lights off your car, and you can look off on this, like down the dirt road, kind of on this hill, and you can see the light. It doesn't. Some people never see it. I've taken friends up there and they don't see it. I've seen it, different times. But it travels that whole little valley area, not just that one dirt road. And people's reported all over all over the area in their fields and just wherever, and not just in one spot.
See, those are the ones I think are far more believable than some of the other spook lights, because like I said, there have been some that have now officially been debunked because of cars that have gone by. Like if it's happening in the same area, you get kind of a little bit skeptical on that, because if it's happening in the same area, and if it's happening especially on a road area, you're going to probably eventually assume, saying that's definitely got to be cars. It may look like a spook light from a distance, but once like if you have a really good camera and zoom in and start seeing headlights, there's your explanation for it. But with other spook lights, like the Paulding Light and the spook light you're talking about, Jason, if it's actually moving around and it's been seen again over a century, and if it's especially appearing in areas where it's not possible for any cars or vehicles to ever go over, that's definitely a lot more believable than.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's also been like news crews and everything go out there and see if they can like investigate it, and people from professors from different colleges and try to see if they can figure it out. Like just nobody can figure out what it is.
Exactly.
And they used
Scientists have scientists gone out there too. I'm assuming they have.
They've all tried to.
In fact, Jason, it's kind of funny. I'm actually going to bring this up again on one of the occasions where they debunked one of them. They actually featured it on the Weather Channel on the show's Strangest Weather on Earth. I don't know if you remember that show. They did one segment on one of those supposed spook lights. They brought in a few scientists from the university to see if they could try to either debunk it or see if this was a real light. And once they put the cameras on, they zoomed in as close as they could. That's when they saw the headlights from these cars. So, as far as I know, that was one of those times they brought in scientists.
Wow, it's pretty cool. There used to be an old man that lived out there who ran it's called the Spook Light Museum. I don't know.
Awesome.
I don't know if it was like in his house, but I don't know if they. I don't know if he still does, but
it would be really cool to go to.
A lot of the local people they don't like all the traffic, people going out there and trying to find it and watch it, but if you're out there being respectful and being quiet, it's it doesn't really matter, I guess. But as long as you turn down Spook Light Road and just kind of hang out there, at dark, you might see it.
Well, if I ever come down, hopefully if I ever do come down to Arkansas real soon, I'll definitely make sure to put that on my list, because that's something I definitely would like to see.
Even if it's not soon, we'll still be here. Even if it's a while from now and we're old and decrepit, we'll still be here and we'll still get I'll still go get my
I'll be
stuff
coming
and I'll
down
go.
real soon. I promise you guys that will happen.
It would be cool if we could set something up to go look at that because I haven't seen it either myself, and I would like to see it.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Well, additionally, I've never even been to Arkansas yet, so I got to make that.
You gotta make every
How's
state
that for
at
my
least
first
if
visit
you
to
just stick
Arkansas?
your foot on it, like step your
Yes.
foot on there. Yeah.
All right, so I just want to see. I see Brent had a question here.
Been into he was about colors of orbs.
Oh, brown orb.
Have we heard different colors having different meanings? Yeah. You can answer it first. Go ahead.
So I don't really fully have like a full answer for orbs, but from what I've heard is like I said before about the spook lights. I mean, orbs, yes, they do appear in different colors, and normally I'm skeptical on them too. But on the few occasions where I think they actually are, delicate and legit, obviously they're different colors. Some of them are red, some are green, some of them are orange, some are red, some are blue, some are green, different colors alike. What the actual meaning of the colors, again, I'm not entirely sure, but again, like I said, it could be based on the person's aura, the energy, the essence of the body is being transmitted through the air. But that's just
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
It had a lot to do with the aura, I feel like.
Yeah, it's just different energies, and it's how much strength they have to show that pulsating energy, what color it comes across, maybe what mood they're in or whatever,
I was going to say, could be also emotions too. Like perhaps maybe each of our emotions that we have may come in different colors. I mean, we see it a lot, of course, in movies, shows, cartoons, even music at times. Like they say, when we feel sad, we feel blue. When we're angry, we have we have like that red look to it. So
I'm pretty sure brown is anxiety and worry, I think.
I thought it was actually fear, to be honest with you.
Well, anxiety would be like it would cause you to have like some kind of fear, probably, or worry would cause you to have some kind of fear. I think those are what brown usually represents.
I tell you what, though, it's really cool and really weird and really scary and exciting all at the same time and all that kind of stuff when you see orbs with your own eyes, not just like on camera, because we've all seen them on camera when we're doing investigations or whatever, but like when they have enough energy to actually show you, to make that visible connection, like when you can actually see it.
Right.
And
see,
it's always,
it's always, Jason, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's always when you can't get it on camera, but you see it with your own eye. That's, to me, that's always pretty cool, and it's like just it's unexplainable.
Well, you see, I actually did see, the last time I actually did see an orb with my own eyes without, even any cameras. And this is something I think this is a place I've told you guys before, is at that high school we have here in Chicago at Carl Sears High School.
That is an awesome looking building.
Yeah. I turned at one point and I saw right at the corner of my eye, I saw this pink orb just shooting right across the ceiling of the library. And again, another example of a colored orb, pink in color. I mean, that considered we were at a high school, perhaps, I've heard pink on many occasions usually represents happiness and excitement. So perhaps, going to high school for some kids, well, I know that high school is not always for everyone because there's a lot of negative emotions, but there's also a lot of,
lots of shadow figures walking around, dragging their books behind them.
Students who probably enjoyed their years of high school, so that probably might have been the reason why that orb might have been pink in color. It might have been excitement and happiness for that whatever entity that I did see through its aura.
No.
And then it went outside the building and it turned yellow. It was like, school's out. Yeah, I'm free.
I don't know. I know when we see them on camera and you can see them, people talk about the different, that's dust or whatever. Okay. That's pulsating dust, right? So, you can tell the difference in dust. It looks like, just snow flurries. And
there's a lot of it, for one thing, and it's all directions.
It's all over the place.
And it's a lot of it. Just like so much you can't count it. So it's probably not an orb. And it has, when it's an orb, it moves almost like it's on some kind of like train track setting. It moves
Right.
like in a weird clicky kind of way, and sometimes it's even more smooth, but it's like an
Yeah,
intelligent movement, like a little dragon or
definitely,
something, or a
definitely
fairy or something.
intelligent. Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
some others will say, well, maybe it could also be insects flying around. If an orb is moving a certain speed, like let's say like if I'm using my hand practically like moving this direction and it makes a turn and then it goes back. If it was an insect, it would be going, twice as fast.
Yeah.
Like if you're seeing something that's actually taking its time to like move across the camera, that's a little bit more suspicious than that. Maybe it's not an insect that you're seeing. And additionally, if it was a real orb, it would obviously, I mean, there are some that don't have the classic circular shape, but if you see
Right.
it perfectly round, there's no way you could say that's dust or an insect or even raindrops or snowflakes.
Yeah. I mean, you just really, people who haven't seen them before, you really just have to see them. You would know the difference. It's a totally different thing,
Exactly.
Mhm. So, people who haven't seen any, just look up the difference. You can probably find videos on YouTube of, orbs versus dust versus bugs or whatever, and you can tell
Right.
the difference.
Right.
We're out of time, but I was typing in there. Jeremy said to mention that there's a survey on the Things Network Facebook page, on the main page, Things Network or Things Universal. I don't know if it's on both, but I know it's on Things Network page. There's a survey, and he asked for us to share and ask people to go on there and please take that survey. And it tells you who to send it to. The names of the people are listed. And you can send it to those names on Facebook Messenger or the network, Things Network. Facebook Messenger. You're on YouTube. You can't take it on YouTube. You got to go over to the Facebook page and take it, and also support Paranormal United Network Paralinks page as well. And I don't think there's anybody on immediately after us. If you want to throw anything out there that's a project or something that you're wanting to support at the moment, or a page or a project, anything that you're wanting anybody to know about, Nick.
Well, obviously, as you guys know, I'm not, being on the same network as you guys. Of course, I do have my own show that I do on Wednesday nights now on Wednesday evenings at 5:30 CST, which is 6:30 Eastern time. It's called Paranormal and Historic Locations and Legends. I usually run for just an hour. Sometimes I do go over a little bit, but I think I found out now there's a show that runs right after me now. So. But yeah, if you want to tune into that, I usually will talk about either one or two haunted and historical locations. So if you're looking for also history lessons involving some of these cases and locations, definitely feel free to check it out. And of course, too, as you guys know, I'm also a co-host on the Petri Dish, which I do on Thursday nights with Howard, Petri, Adrian, and Jeremy. But the only other thing I'll throw out too is obviously you guys are involved in this too. I am currently working on a new horror audio book series, which I will have more details on with soon. Which Rosie and Jason, I'll talk to you guys about it after.
Yeah, I'm excited whenever it happens.
Yeah, we will be working on that real soon. So I'll have more details once I get the story sent out.
That's cool.
Awesome.
So, what I'm gonna say is, everybody show some love and support for Ukraine.
Yes.
It's just crazy what's going on over there. And then I'll tell you what, it just spills over just a little bit. That's when we're getting involved. So,
well, I think we're already energetically and in other ways involved, and we're just waiting for we're waiting for the green light.
That's my mom. Actually, my mom was telling my dad this the other day, saying, "I'm sure right now, even as I speak, I'm sure the U.S. Army as well as other countries are probably because just like we did with World War I and II, they're probably like, you know what, we better get ready for it because we're probably going to get called just like that. So they're probably already getting ready.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Say your prayers.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Everybody, thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.